Love alone is credible. Nothing else can be believed. Nothing else ought to be believed. That amazing sentence was offered by one of the top Roman Catholic theologians of the 20th century. He was later appointed cardinal, but died just before he assumed that position. So it's not a piece of fluff. It comes from the loftiest realms of churchly authority, if that matters to you. Love alone is credible. Nothing else can be believed. Nothing else ought to be believed. The Christian faith offers lots of beliefs, but the sole litmus test is love. If it's not loving, don't believe it. I almost want to offer that sentence at the beginning of every sermon now as a caveat. Love alone is credible. If I say anything that is not loving, don't believe it. Okay, there's the caveat. Now, let's go back to the year 2005. That seems so long ago, the year 2005. It was the first year I preached at First-Plymouth. 2005, Hurricane Katrina made landfall on the Gulf Coast, causing unimaginable human misery. 2005, Camilla Parker Bowles married Prince Charles. This seems so long ago. 2005, the first YouTube was uploaded. How did we do anything before you could YouTube it? My son just took apart his whole car, put it back together again, just following a YouTube. How did we do anything before YouTubes? 2005. The West Wing was riding high on television, winning Emmys. And there's a scene I want to tell you about from the West Wing that year. There had been a presidential assassination attempt, and Josh Lyman, Leo McGarrity's deputy, Josh Lyman was shot, and he's beginning to suffer PTSD. And there's this scene with Leo and Josh talking, and Josh is not doing well. And Leo tells him a little parable. Here it is. There was a man walking down the street when he fell in a hole. And the sides were so steep, he couldn't get out. Then along came a doctor, and he said, "Hey, can you help me get out of this hole?" And the doctor stopped, wrote a prescription on a piece of paper, threw it down the hole, and went on. After a while, a priest comes walking by, and the man in the hole shouts out, "Hey, Father, can you get me out of here?" The priest stops, writes a little prayer on a piece of paper, throws it down the hole, and walks on. After a while, a friend comes walking by, and the man yells out the hole, Jack, thank God you're here. Could you help me get out of this hole?" And right away, Jack jumps in the hole. And our guy says, "Are you stupid? Now we're both stuck here." And this is what his friend said to him. "I've been here before, and I know the way out." There's a friend. Do you know that essentially the gospel tells us that Jesus jumps into the hole with us? That's the gospel. In the gospel, Jesus is not some Zeus-like God that is levitating above all the troubles of the world. No, Jesus experiences the difficulties and hardships. He's been there before, and he knows the way out. Jesus experienced testing and temptations in the desert. He became tired and frustrated. Have you ever been tired and frustrated? Jesus knows what that's like. He'd have to go off alone to renew himself. He would get in arguments, and he suffered the betrayal of his friends. He suffered confusion about his purpose in life. In the Garden of Gethsemane, he wasn't sure what he should do. And then he suffered humiliation and a horrible death. Jesus has been in the hole, and he knows the way out. Will we find a friend so faithful, who will all our sorrows share? Jesus knows every weakness. He's experienced every one. Take it to the Lord in prayer. And in essence, my friends, the entire Christian faith jumps into the hole with you. The entire Christian faith knows that life is difficult. Life is hard. I'm in a sermon series right now that's looking at that reality. Life is difficult, but that together we can make it out with our faith and with our Christ. We can emerge from the wilderness. All through the Bible, there are moments of hardship. And in this sermon series, I'm picking certain ones, moments of great difficulty or fear or hardship. The first week, we had Jesus in the desert. Then last week, we had Daniel in the lion's den. And Pastor Juan Carlos preached so beautifully about how even with faith, the lions are still there. Even with faith, there's still hardship and danger, but we can make it through. This week, I'm in one of the great passages of peril at sea, where in Acts chapter 27, Paul is in this amazing shipwreck. This was like the favorite passage from Sunday school. I mean, when I was a little kid, this is a moment in the Bible that was captivating. This perilous sea journey, and then he becomes stranded on an island. So it's like Robinson Crusoe or Swiss Family Robinson. I love that. Right there in Acts 27. I mean, it doesn't have a volleyball with a face on it like that Tom Hanks movie, but it's essentially the same story. They're at sea, and as you read the chapter, you're caught up in this moment of such great danger. It goes for 14 days. They face headwinds. They can't control the ship. They can't find a safe harbor. 14 days. Paul is a prisoner on the ship. It's heading to Rome. There are 276 people, mostly prisoners and just a handful of sailors. And 14 days, they can't get to a safe harbor. And then finally they get stuck running aground off an island, but then the waves begin to beat upon the ship and break it apart 2 times in these 14 days. Paul steps up and addresses the crew and all the prisoners saying, "We will be okay," 2 times. At one point, he steps up, takes some bread, breaks it, gives thanks to God. It's basically a communion scene, and says to them again, "Not a single hair will be lost from your head." Twice he tries to assure them. It's almost like a Spartacus scene among the prisoners. And then the ship is broken into pieces. Some guys are holding on to planks, others are swimming to shore, and they land stranded on the island of Malta. Everyone made it. Read Acts 27, it's amazing. Now, did you know that a ship journey became one of the key images for the Christian church or the life of faith? Did you know that? The earliest Christians, where they would gather to worship, would sometimes draw an image of a ship and a sail. They imagined to be church together, to be on the life of faith, is to take a sea journey, and it can be perilous at times. Did you know how central this image is? In fact, the sanctuary I'm standing in, sometimes it's called a nave. That comes from the Latin navis, or where we get our word navy. Sea imagery and a journey is very central to the church. The word worship comes from an old Anglo phrase, worthy ship. When we gather for worship, we board a worthy ship and we begin the journey of faith into the depths and at times into the unknown and the dangers. A sea journey. A central image of the faith. Do you know, even in a church in Nebraska, maybe the most landlocked state of all, We have the images of the Mariner's Cross, even in Nebraska, because this image of being at sea, that's the very image of the church. All those images of Noah and Jonah's sea journeys, and all the times Jesus gets into a boat with his disciples. The life of faith is a sea journey, and it can become perilous. We're in Paul's shipwreck, and I want to focus on the fact that faith, this journey of faith, can be hard. I think sometimes when the preacher's in a robe and talking about faith, it sounds like he or she is assuming faith is presumed, that faith is easy. Faith is anything but easy. And at times we can lose faith or not be sure that we have faith. It's perilous. Faith is especially not easy these days when you see some versions of Christianity that are either so creepy or cheesy, you just wonder, how can I believe in this stuff? Like when you saw Christian symbols on the insurrection at the Capitol, the sort of white supremacist or nationalist Christianities, and you think, how can I believe this stuff? Or cheesy Christianity that focuses on preening piety and certain beliefs, or you go to heaven or hell, or absurd theologies, or faith can be hard when your life isn't going well. When we're struggling, we can wonder, is there really God? What good is faith? Oh, the Bible knows this. There's countless moments where people in the Bible are expressing, where are you, God? Where is my faith? Faith is hard. Sometimes when we come to church, you might look around and assume everyone is just rocking it. Everyone is just feeling it, and has full faith. That's not the way it is on this sea journey. At any moment when we gather, some are really struggling to wonder, do they really believe? In today's world, it seems like faith is against science. A lot of people wonder, is it credible to believe? Love alone is credible. And the faith is about love. Soren Kierkegaard was one of the greatest Christian philosophers of all time. Early 1800s, a Danish philosopher in Copenhagen. Soren Kierkegaard preeminently believed, in all his books, tried to express that faith is hard. Faith is really hard. You see, in his philosophy, faith is not some form of objective knowledge that you can hold on to, that you can't just receive your faith from religious dogma or human artifices like the church, that faith is a subjectivity. He called it an interior, infinite inwardness, and faith had to seek this infinite passion within, but it's subjective and it can be hard to hold on to, and you spend a lifetime trying to discover that faith within. Soren Kierkegaard believed that we essentially go through stages as we move towards faith, but it's always aspirational, and we can lose hold of this subjectivity, this interior truth. The first stage for him was what he called the aesthetic, when we're looking to enjoy the things in life and drawn to beautiful things. And in the aesthetic stage, what we're worried about is boredom. And so we spend a lot of life trying to distract ourselves or entertain ourselves. But then you might progress to the next stage, which is the ethical stage. And you begin not just to seek enjoyment or to avoid boredom. You begin to realize that you want respect and fairness and follow ethical rules, and that there are things are right, and you start to focus on what's right. But still, there's a further stage of faith that is so hard, it takes a leap. He talked about the leap of faith, that you can't hold on to any objective knowledge. And at the core of the Christian faith is a paradox, this idea that God became human, the incarnation. How can that be? It seems unbelievable, so you have to take a leap into the absurdity of it almost. Soren Kierkegaard, an amazing philosopher that knew faith is hard. And we're always on that journey. And so I simply want to say to you what Paul said on that ship. You will be okay, even if you're not feeling it right now. I want to say exactly what Paul said, that everything will be okay. And if it's not okay, everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. Actually, that's John Lennon. Everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. Paul essentially held communion, held church on that ship. It still crashed, just like there's still lions in the den. But not a single hair from your head will be lost. Somehow, out of even the greatest struggles, something good will come of it. The faith. Amen.